Chapter 41, A Reason to Smile. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Does Say really doesn't smile at all? Davi's question was followed by a short silence. Well, it was simply because Zaki was quite speechless. He prepared himself for a hardcore question, only to end up hearing such randomly unexpected and seemingly silly question. That is your question, he asked. I once asked the maids and Mr. Go, but they too said they haven't seen him smile even once. Wait, what's with that reaction? Don't tell me that's forbidden as well. Ha. Of course not. Ha. I was just surprised. I never saw that coming. Zaki was laughing hard, causing Davi to go quite impatient. Just answer me. We're about to reach the entrance. Okay. Well, Say is. How do I put this? Now that you mention it, I don't even remember the last time he smiled. Ouch. Zaki playfully shouted in pain when Davi's arm tightened again. This time, she seems serious to just strangle him for real if he still won't let her hear the answer she's looking for. Causing Zaki cracked up once again deep within. Seriously, this girl. Please stop playing around. I answered you seriously. Apologies. Okay, this is it. Well, he really doesn't smile anymore. Well, he does once in a blue moon. He has that terrifying and deadly evil smile when he gets beyond angry and was about to kill a certain sly prey. That's when we went hunting in the mountain. But well, that wasn't the smile you're talking about, right? The girl nodded and Zaki took a slightly deep breath, then he continued talking. But well, seriously, of all the other questions, why his smile? Because I know you can't answer the questions I really wanted to ask. And I just really wanted to know, I want to see him smile. Wait, please don't distract me, and just answer me. Okay. Here we go. As you know, he is always an impassive type. He appeared as though he was a beast who doesn't really know how to react normally. Well, he does smiles once in a while back when we were kids, but, yeah, it's quite rare even as a kid. So it's not really that surprising. I mean, of course, there's also some factors behind, but I think. Factors behind? Like what? That's a dangerous question, young miss. But all I can say is, it's not like he couldn't. You can think of it like he just doesn't have a reason to smile. But you don't have to worry, I think sooner or later, you can eventually make him smile again. Davi was speechless after his statement. So Zaki was curious about what kind of expression she's been showing at the moment, but too bad, he couldn't see her face. Are you not satisfied with my answer? He asked. Obviously, I'm not. What's with that so minimal explanation? I'm so curious about him. I know you know that. Well, be glad, young miss. Your question was supposed to be answered with simply yes or no, you see. You should be glad, Mr. Chen, my question wasn't supposed to be an easy one like that. I'm just thinking about your precious life, you see. Zaki could only laugh hard with the girl's savage response as they approached the black car. And as soon as he opened its door, Zaki could only scratch his head because of the oozing coldness and sharp gazes being directed to him. Ugh. This one too. The two of them really are simply amusing. Chapter 42, Spur of the Moment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By the time they arrived at the Grey Mansion, Say carried her in his arms again like a princess. His aura somehow returned back to its usual impassiveness. However, Davi could feel that there's definitely something that did change. She felt as though Say's attention was a bit more focused onto her than ever before at the moment, and it made Davi's face felt a bit hot and highly delighted. And as soon as they entered the large sofa, he put her down on the couch and asked the maids to immediately feed her, without leaving her side, as though he was watching her just in case she stubbornly forced herself to walk. After her meal, Davi stared at the quiet man beside her. And noticing her gaze, Say talked. Speak. I'm taking a bath. She said, and upon hearing her, Say stood right away and lifted her without delay and started walking towards the stairs as he carried her in his arms. Davi on the other hand was a bit taken aback since he didn't ask the maids to follow them. Can you call the maids to accompany me? I'm afraid I might make my feet bleeds again if, why? You prefer the maids than I. As if time just stood still, Davi went frozen in his arms for a long moment. Her long straight lashes fluttered and her brain just seemed to shut down for a moment. And when she finally returned back to reality and realized what he just said, Davi didn't know how to react or what to say, as a flush just crept up her face as if her entire blood went up into her head. What did he just said? Is this man even aware how perverted he sounds right now? She was at loss as to what to say to him. And while Davi was whacking her head to think properly, a sudden burst of laughter echoed loudly from below that instantly made Say, who was now on the second floor, paused. Pfft, ha ha ha. Zaki's sharp ears just overheard Say's words and he couldn't help but laugh no matter how much he tried to stop himself. However, upon glancing at the laughing man downstairs, Say ignored him as he continued walking nonchalantly as if a certain mosquito just made a senseless scene. At that same moment, Zaki's noise somehow made Davi's senses went back to normal. And her brain started to work as usual even though she's still blushing intensely as she started reconsidering a lot of things. She knows there's nothing wrong about going to the bath together with him since he is her husband, and most importantly, this could be a chance for her to see how he reacts towards her in that kind of situation. She thought that this might be the unplanned opportunity that she has been seeking. And thinking about those pros, she was about to consider preparing herself mentally and emotionally if not for a certain conceivable possibility that was like a huge monster that was forcefully destroying her resolve. What if I fail? What if he won't even react even when he saw me naked? Wouldn't that end up being way too lethal blow for me? Can I even face him properly after such huge embarrassing defeat? At that moment, Davi looked befuddled and lost. She couldn't decide which she should do. A part of her still wanted to try, however, she was thinking about her original plan. She was supposed to do it slowly and court him first before jumping into him. Her plan was that she'll only do this kind of seduction when the probability of her success will reach the highest level. She doesn't want to sacrifice her plans for just a spur of the moment gamble. However, curious as she is, her curiosity was badly itching her. Chapter 43, Step number 18. You're listening at Novel Full. Audio. In the bedroom, Davi was sitting at the edge of the bed while waiting for Say as he prepares her bath. She decided not to take the risky road in the end. She thought that the gamble isn't worth it. However, she didn't want to waste this opportunity. She has to use this chance for her advantage and gain some useful experiments. And while the adrenaline rush was still rolling positive, Davi decided to jump into a higher level. Step number 18. First step of physical flirting. Hinari advised her that she should do it at the right timing, and start with the baby steps. Her great love coach's words also started echoing in her head. Remember, flirting is an art, so for a newbie like you, you need to begin with just simple sketches before putting intense colors. And don't do it in an overly insinuating way, just make it natural and safe. If you find a perfect opportunity, just go with the flow, but don't forget your limit. The most important thing is the first step, which was to show him that you're comfortable enough with him. And you have to be keen and watch his reactions. If the reaction is positive, then congratulations, you can now step up to the next level, but if the reaction is negative, pull back and try again next time. While Davi's head was occupied with her mission, she started stripping. She took off her T-shirt, and her royal blue T-shirt bra perfectly revealed her milky, porcelain-like skin, as her long midnight-colored hair was cascading down her slender and lithe body. Shortly after, she then started pulling the top half of her jeans down to her knees, revealing her long gorgeous legs. However, she stopped halfway because of the bandages on her feet. At that same moment, the masked man who just stepped out from Davi's closet with a white robe in his hand, stood still for a moment and watched the girl, motionless. And while Davi was raising both her legs, as her jean was down to her knees, she noticed the man looking at her, so she immediately turned her head towards him. Upon seeing him, Davi's cheeks turned pink as she slowly put down her feet. Well, even if this scene was purposely set up for him to see, it was still hard for her to strip before him after all, even though they were married couple. Davi's plan was simply to strip before him and see his reaction. However, the next thing the man did had made Davi completely thrown off. He walked straight towards her and draped the robe on her back. Then, he squatted in front of her and started touching her foot to help her remove her tight jeans when he suddenly stopped. His eyes seemed traveled from her legs up to her face in a flash. Then, he rose and made her wear the robe as he helped her cover her body with it. In the end, the robe covered everything down to her knees. Afterwards, he squatted down again and he held her foot right away as he gently removed the jeans. Davi was completely speechless during the whole process. Her face is still blazing pink and she felt like her temperature just rose. Moreover, Say's gestures and body language was completely unfathomable. She couldn't read him at all, and him covering her body instantly the moment he saw her naked was something she couldn't comprehend, whether it was a positive reaction or not at all. What did he mean by that? Was that supposed to be a good reaction? Or did he just doesn't want to see me naked? Davi could only wonder about it, feeling a bit defeated. However, when her gaze fell at the man in front of her, Davi couldn't help but chuckle. Causing Say to curiously look up to her. Davi was actually amused. It was because Say was removing her jeans seriously and gently as ever, almost as if he was just on the process of defusing a bomb. And seeing him looking at her, Davi reflexively put her hand into his head and messed his hair playfully. "You're doing good, she said with a big bright smile, and Say just bowed again and continued what he was doing. Shortly thereafter, Say carried Davi into the bathroom. And at that time, his hands touched her bare legs as he carried her, electrifying Davi and turning her already pink cheeks into crimson red. He put her down on a chair near the bathtub, then he faced towards her. Looking at her reddened face, Say could tell she seemed struggling with something in her mind, and was curious about it. "Thank you," the girl said as she smiled at him again. Chapter 44, Step number 14. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thank you. Upon hearing her thanks, Say nodded at her, but he still didn't look away, for the girl looks like she has something she's about to say. At that very moment, Davi instantly switched gears. Step 19's result wasn't clear and it still seemed a bit too early to execute after all. However, Davi knew she still had the opportunity to execute other step during that situation. Thus, she thought about step number 14. Step number 14, don't be too agreeable. Davi remembered her friend's words about this particular trick. She said that most men don't find extremely agreeable women attractive. Possibly because they think such person appeared easy and not challenging at all. Furthermore, Davi has always been a person who hates being an agreeable puppet to no matter who it is, so she has to say no, even to this man when she thinks she has to. I think I prefer the maids to help me take a bath after all, she said in a way that a bit sounded shy and mean. Well, part of it was her punishment to him for not showing her a clear reaction a while ago. However, Say remained unbothered. "Okay, wait here and don't move. I'll call them," he said and walked out of the bathroom. Later that day, Davi spent her time reviewing her books while Say went somewhere again. By the time he arrived home, Davi was already preparing to sleep. She was thinking as she stared at the ceiling while she waits for him. She was thinking about Say's feelings towards her. In her eyes, their relationship is definitely improving, and even though Say has always been good to her, lately, she felt like he was somewhat starting to spoil her. Though it appeared as though she still has a long way to go when it comes to seducing him. While she's in her deep thoughts, she didn't notice Say getting in. The man then looked at the girl lost in thought while lying on the bed, then without a word he purposely walked noticeably as he moves closer to avoid startling her. Noticing him, Davi instantly rose. "Welcome home," she said softly as she turned to look at him. Say sat at the edge of the bed as he uttered a single sound. Minutes went by and the two were now lying quietly and were around 3 inches away from each other. Davi could tell that Say doesn't want to sleep just yet, and for some reason, Davi still couldn't sleep as well. The 2 bed lamps on each side of the bed were still casting a soft glow in the room and Say is still wearing his mask. The silence was deafening, however, neither of them were uncomfortable with it. "What are you thinking?" Unusually, Say started talking. Upon hearing him, Davi was astounded and a bright smile carved in her face. And before answering, she rolled and faced him. "I'm thinking if I could ask you something." "Can I?" "Go ahead." Davi's entire face lit up even more upon hearing his approval. Excitement and eagerness glowed in her eyes while looking at him as she began to open her mouth. In a scale of 10, how are you wanting? I mean, how are you liking me right now?" she asked, and she held her breath as she waited for his answer. Chapter 45. Just you. Why you are listening at novelfull.audio. In a scale of 10, how are you wanting? I mean, how are you liking me right now? Hearing her question, Say glanced at her and saw her holding her breath as if she was waiting for her verdict, and looking at him as if he was a supreme judge. Again, he was amused by her expression, and so he answered her with one word. 3. The moment he said it, she looked like she just heard the word guilty, and she pouted right away like a disappointed little kid. Then, she rolled away and sobbed her face into her pillow. Just 3. Too low. And he said it without even thinking for a while. Are you serious? Davi was speechless and could only protest deep within her. However, after thinking about it, she realized it wasn't that bad after all. Considering the kind of man he is, she thought that 30% wasn't that bad, and she still has lots of hidden cards up her sleeves. She then took a deep breath. She told herself that the most important thing to her was that she just ensured that things were surely moving forward no matter how slow it is. All I need to do is work even harder. Let's do it. Just you wait, Say, I'll definitely conquer you. Somehow, Davi was recharged and motivated. The disappointment in her face had faded and her eyes started burning with a brand new determination. And thinking about the changes between them within almost a month, she was happy with all the development. She herself couldn't explain how warm the feelings inside her chest has become lately. Good night, she finally said, and she turned off the bed lamp beside her. After some minutes, Davi finally fell asleep. Say then sat quietly and stared at her for a long while. Afterwards, he touched her hair and whispered a soft, good night. And mysteriously, the corner of his mouth slightly lifted just before he covered his eyes. After breakfast, Zaki explained what happened yesterday. He said that according to the investigation, she was just kidnapped by mistake and that the people behind were already jailed. Davi believed in his words since it was actually the only thing that makes sense. But how did you find me? The young master actually sent that little guy to watch over you that day, so it's quite a lucky coincidence. Zaki answered as he pointed his hand into Eugene. After Davi's questions were all answered by today's attorney, Mr. Chen, the two of them finally left the kitchen, leaving the masked man and his wife. I'm going abroad tonight. The man said. He looked at her and she's pressing her lips together as she nods at him. However, the next thing he said made her expression dulled. I might take a long time this time. How long? She asked, hesitantly. I can't tell. At that moment, Davi's energy visibly went down upon hearing him. She could somehow feel that the way he said it seemed telling her that he will take quite a long while this time, and she doesn't know why she suddenly felt sad. She remembered that she didn't felt anything like this every time he said he'll leave before. Is it because he might really have gone for a month or longer this time? Looking at her saddened expression, Say's fist slightly clenched. However, after a short moment, Davi, who was looking disheartened a moment ago, lifted her head and breathed deep as if she was getting back her lost energy from the air. Then she stared at Say and her expression turned adorable as her eyes twinkled like stars. At that moment, Say could tell that whenever she wears that adorable expression, she will ask a favor. Tell me, he said, causing Davi's eyes to widen for a bit before she opened her mouth. Then, before you go, can we have a date? Chapter 46 Step number 05 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing her request, Say almost agreed in a flash. However, realizing Davi's situation, he decided to reject her. You're hurt, he said. It's fine. I mean here in the house, just spend the remaining hours with me. Let's binge watch movies. How about it? Davi's eyes turned even more adorable as she pressed her palms together like a little girl pleading for her dad to buy her something that she was dreaming to get her entire life. Her way of pleading was definitely a lethal weapon that can knock anyone senseless and make one just agreed with whatever she wishes. Let's do that. Say finally replied after watching her pleads for a while. And with that, happiness and excitement instantly overtook Davi's face. Well, it's been such a long time since she spent long hours just to watch, simply because she doesn't want to watch alone. And lately, Haru, her little brother, who used to be her watching pal, started rejecting her, using all the overused excuses just to get away every time Davi asks him to watch with her, leaving her wondering and asking why. Due to her injured feet, Davi then called the maids and asked them to set up the things she had in mind. After a brief period of time, Say was now carrying her towards the sofa. A huge television was now in the middle and a red bed was in front of it. The gray curtains covered the light from outside and the silver chandelier was emitting a soft light, making the whole sofa looking simply romantic. Say then put Davi down and she leaned on the red headboard. Say also sat beside her. The first movie I've seen in cinema was I think a cartoon movie, she began. How about you? I never set foot in cinemas. Ah. Okay then, consider this your first time. Now let's choose what's first, action, comedy, love story, or thriller, she asked again, and Say could only reply her the words, up to you. At that moment, Davi decided to go back to the basic for the meantime. She realized, it's no good to rush things after all, and she thought about just relaxing this time and forget about thinking lots of things. Therefore, she chose what she thinks the easiest step listed in her note. The only step she thinks that doesn't require any calories to be sacrificed for brainstorming. Step number 05, just be yourself. Hinari didn't said anything much about this step. She simply said, just show yourself to him, and if he likes you the way you are, then you hit a jackpot. Davi understood what she meant, and she's always been doing this step the whole time. The only difference was that, she decided not to think about her notes, the next steps she should do and everything, and just spend the day as it is with him, and what happens, happened. Davi then chose the comedy show first. At first, Davi was focused on the show, occasionally laughing. However, every time she laughs and looked at Say, her laughter fades right away because Say never reacted at all. As if he was just there and looking at her, wondering why she was laughing. Thus, Davi decided to stop looking at him and just focus on the movie. Until time went by and Davi started laughing really hard to the point that she's tearing up and was gripping her stomach as rolled around. She even started ignoring Say, telling herself that she'll just think that he is her little brother, Haru, for the meantime. And at the climax of the movie, Davi started smashing Say's shoulder as well as the pillow in her hand while laughing hard. Her world was completely immersed with the extremely funny show she's watching, while the man beside her was silent and motionless the whole time. His gaze wasn't even on the screen, rather, he was focused on the girl beside him as if she was the movie and the TV was simply nothing. And thus, the next movie, which was a romantic comedy, has started. Davi occasionally giggled cutely and hugs her pillow, making Sei went curious even more. She even started pulling Sei's arm reflexively, only to brush it off away when the turn of event upsets her. Then shortly after, she claps her hands happily along with the crowds in the movie as if she was a part of it, leaving Sei initially confused and marveled like never before. Chapter 47. Who is she calling cute? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Finally, the third movie has started. At the beginning, Davi was serious and quiet. But while the movie was getting intense, she's also getting wilder. She covers her eyes with the pillow when there's intensely brutal scenes, hides behind Sei's shoulders and tugs his shirt when the lead actor was about to be shot to death, and shouted the words, "Run, run, faster," multiple times with intense emotion. Leaving Sei even more enthralled by her unexpected Quicksilver emotions. And at the end of the movie, when the villain died a gruesome death, Davi's eyes welled up. That moment, Sei, who's already overflowing with wonders and curiosity, suddenly scrunched briefly. He didn't expect her to cry just for that. He immediately reached out the tissue paper on the table and gave it to her as he stared intently at her while she wiped her welling eyes. And seeing the girl's expressions went through several transformations, and the different emotions flashing in her eyes one after another, left him completely speechless. He couldn't believe that even a lifeless little screen can make this girl laugh and cry at the same time, miraculously turning her into an emotional roller coaster. Shortly after that, the guy who stayed motionless like stone and remained non-existent for more than 3 freaking hours finally returned to life and talked. He killed lots of people, why do you sympathize with him? He asked, while his face was resting on his hand. Davi was stunned. She realized that she completely ignored him the whole time in the end. And more importantly, he never didn't seem to care about the movies at all the whole time. Why is he asking such question now? The movie he was talking about was actually about a man who became a ruthless serial killer. He killed people mercilessly as if they were nothing but mosquitoes while the protagonist was hunting him down. However, at the end of the story, when the killer was killed gruesomely, a flashback appeared in his memory, showing the merciless death of his entire beloved family, which caused him to get revenge and killed every people involved. I don't know, but it's not like sympathizing with bad people's misfortunes means I'm in his side, right? That man is too heartless, and he still did wrong no matter what his reasons were, and that's what I think is the saddest part. Upon hearing her statement, Sei went silent for a while, then he reached out to smooth her hair, gently. Causing Davi to smile at him as if she's already back to her normal self, 101%. And seeing her regained her usual bright smile, Sei asked, "Still want to watch more?" "Nope, my eyes are tired." She shook her head as she yawned and stretched her arms. "So, how was the movies?" "Not bad." He immediately replied, and Davi could only scratch her head. She knows it was only her who enjoyed it, and she dared calling it a date. "You got bored, right?" she asked. And seeing her dulled expression, he opened his mouth as he patted her hair again gently. "I didn't have time to get bored because you're noisy," he said, and Davi immediately went speechless. "And unruly. And doesn't stay still at all," he continued, causing Davi's mouth to hang open in disbelief. "PFTT, hahaha." Davi couldn't hold her laughter. She abruptly reached out Sei's hair and playfully messed it as she chuckled continuously, as if she was really amused to the core. "Why are you being so cute today?" she continued as her eyes twinkled as if Sei just turned into an adorable little beast in her eyes again. Davi's words were unplanned and she simply said it reflexively. However, it was actually quite destructive in its own way. As soon as the man heard the word "cute" being addressed to him, his forehead immediately formed some incredibly deep lines. The impact seemed quite lethal, that he remained blank for a while. This girl, who is she calling cute? Chapter 48. Step number 12. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Later that night, they were finishing dinner when Sei told her that he will leave Eugene as her bodyguard and that he should be with her everywhere she goes from now on. You mean, even when I go to my brother's place and sleep there? She asked. You can leave him outside, he replied, and she could only cough lightly. Davy somehow noticed that when Say was talking about someone else other than her, he seemed to switch back entirely to his usual stone-cold and heartless tone. He really didn't mean it, right? How could I leave such a pretty little boy outside? An hour later, it's time for Say to leave. Davy could only stare intensely at Say since she couldn't perform her kiss and run anymore. I'm leaving, he said, and then he turned his back and started walking away just like that. Davy was sitting on the sofa while watching his back when she suddenly spoke. Wait, she said hesitantly, causing Say to immediately turn towards her. Davy shyly looked at the butler and Mr. Chen, indicating that she wanted him to come closer. I have something to say. Seeing her shy expression, Say walked closer to her right away. And when he finally stood right in front of her, Davy gestured that she wants to whisper something to him. Thus, Say bent and moved his ear closer to her. However, moments went by and no word came out of her mouth. Curious, Say turned his face, and at that very moment, a warm kiss suddenly landed on the tip of his nose. Well, that was an accident. Davy was planning to kiss his cheek, but he turned and it happened. At that exact moment, the two were both speechless. Davy instantly turned red and Say remained staring at her, motionless. Davy was actually in her mission mode. Step number 12, occasionally surprise him with simple little things. She wants to at least do something before he leaves. And the only thing she could do with her current situation was give him a surprise. Not knowing that she too ended up being surprised as well. Realizing their closeness, Davy moved back as she bit her lip. Take care on your trip, she shyly said softly, and the man finally moved. He uttered as he stood straight and patted her hair before he walked away and disappeared from her eyes. The next day, Davy woke up being followed by an old man oozing with majestic elegance, who introduced himself as the new substitute butler, named Mr. Kazuki. Davy was suspicious. She felt that there's no way this man was just a butler. However, Mr. Go was the one who introduced him to her, so she could only think that she might only be thinking too much. Days went by and Davy spent her time studying seriously in her study room. She didn't come out until her feet finally healed. Until a week went by. Mr. Kazuki. What are you doing? Davy rushed into the old butler, who was obviously having a hard time carrying a pot of bonsai in his hand. Davy immediately took the pot away from him and held his hand. I told you right. Just let me do that. Davy took the cutter and gave it to him. You can just cut the grasses here, okay? A really worried expression was carved in her face, so the old man could only laugh and obey her. Please don't worry about me too much, young miss, it isn't that heavy. Oh, come on grandpa, please stop being stubborn. What will I do if you'll hurt your back? I'm strong, but I still can't carry you, you know. Fine. Then let me cut the grasses. But, you're a very special young miss, so you shouldn't be doing this kind of work. It really pained the heart of this old man. Now you're the worrywart one, grandpa. This job isn't hard at all. And I like doing this myself, so you don't have to worry. I'm quite used with this as well. You truly are amazing, young miss. Of course I am. She replied with a playful smug face, causing the old man to laugh and tease her back. Davy then sighed in relief. Ever since this old man appeared in the house, Davy was never alone. The new butler has been sticking with her as soon as she came out of her room. The old man ate with her, and accompanied her in everything she did. He was even being a bit too stubborn, trying to help her in everything, making Davy worried occasionally. It was because the old man seemed weak, surely because of his age, and he appeared as though he isn't good in any household chores at all. However, the old man was really soft and cheerful. He always laughs with her, giving old jokes that cracks them both up every now and then. Thus, with just a short time, Davy immediately befriended him, that she decided calling him Grandpa. Say grandpa, are you really a butler? No matter how I see it, you really don't look like one at all. Haha. Just as I said, I'm simply a substitute, so I'm currently a novice butler, young miss. Ah. So stubborn. You're the one stubborn young miss. Do you know how many times you asked that same question to this old poor butler already? Davy was speechless. She sighed and could only give up from asking him. At least for now. Chapter 49 Day and Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The new butler, Mr. Kazuki, was actually no other than the old man who ordered to kidnap Davy the other day. He is Sei's grandfather, Mikazuki Yujiro. He's the father of Sei's late mother, Mikazuki Fei, and was the last king of country J. 14 years ago, with reasons uncanny enough to convince the monarchic loyalist, King Yujiro abolished his own country's monarchy and turned it into a republic. Rumor was that, the real reason behind the abrupt decision was because of the disappearance of the king's only heir and only grandson, who never once appeared in public eyes. Mysteriously, no official announcement was ever made about the rumored prince either, thus creating a tremendous pile of never-ending gossips and theories about his real existence until these days. The unanswered questions about the monarchy abolition and the rumored prince remained buried way deeply that to many, it might never be uncovered anymore. And after over a decade, the former king was now among the secret ultra-rich people who preferred to stay out of the public eyes. He was now the owner of a large corporation and one among the richest men in Eastern Asia whose names mysteriously never once appeared on the lists of powerful and ultra-rich billionaires. However, for the past decade until now, unknown to many, the former king actually remained at the highest echelon of power, influencing both politics and businesses not only in his home country but also in neighboring countries until these days. In the garden, a man in black approached the former king-turned-butler in disguise who was currently watching a girl from afar who was reading books seriously. "Sire, what will you do if the young master suddenly shows up?" the man asked while he hides in the bushes behind. "So what? Heir. Won't the young master get enraged if he sees you here?" "Bvec, why would he get enraged with his own grandfather? Heir. His dear wife was hurt that day, you see. Idiot. That's why I'm here to pay for my men's idiocy." The old man sighed, then he looked up the clear blue sky, looking relieved. "But I'm glad I came after all." Truth was that, Mr. Yujiro disguised himself and went to the Grey Mansion to observe the girl himself. He was planning to test her, however, from the very beginning, he failed to find anything about her that displeases him. She is a clever girl and she doesn't seem to have any hidden intentions, much more hidden fakeness. The more time he spent observing and talking to her, the more she becomes so pleasing in his eyes. She's really like a light, that girl. I never met anyone brighter than her. I wonder how Sei's doing whenever he's with her. The old man continued, making the man behind him frown with curiosity. "What do you mean, sire?" "That girl is like a ball of fire, she's capable enough to melt that frozen stone, might as well burn him down if he lets his guard down." Surprised with his answer, the man in black asked again, for he couldn't understand why Mr. Yujiro's expression seemed dulled for a moment. "But, why do you look like you're not happy with it?" His question was followed by the old man's deep sigh and a short silence. "That grandson of mine, Sai, it will never be easy. Sei is the night, and that girl is the day. Do you think day and night will ever coexist together?" That moment, upon those words came out of his mouth, the old man looked up the sky again and a deep sorrow flashed in his eyes. "So the only way for them to stay together is either the young master stop being the night, or the young miss stop being the day, huh? That's right. If only it's as easy as it sounds." Chapter 50 Pandora's Box. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's been more than 2 weeks since Sei left and Davy never heard anything from him. It's as if he just disappeared into existence, leaving no trace at all. Every time he leaves, Davy always felt like there's something that's inexplicably strange. Davy has been wondering why it felt that way, but to her dismay, she couldn't find an answer. All she knew was that the feeling was undeniably mysterious. She felt as though he's not just leaving to go somewhere far away, it almost felt like his existence also seemed to vanish as if he was just a dream. "Don't you miss the young master?" Mr. Kazuki asked while the two of them were watering the plants together. Upon hearing him, Davi smiled. "I do. This has been the longest time she didn't see him and she didn't expect that she'll going to miss him like this." She realized she strangely needed Sei's presence more than she thought. The young master's occasional disappearance is really inevitable. "Is this all right with you?" Davi went silent for a while, then she faced towards the old man. I think I'm fine with it, and I'm aware he has lots of things to do. But this is the first time I haven't seen him this long. I just realized I'm actually missing him more as days goes by." Haha. Her cute awkward smile and her sincere words never ceased to warm the old man's heart. He has been sighing and feeling distant to the world all this time, but now, a certain young lady appeared and it's as if the sun finally rose in the horizon. "I'm sure, the young master has been missing you more, young miss." Haha. "You think so? Why? You think this old man is lying?" Sorry Gramps, but I'm not really convinced." Davi chuckled mischievously for a moment, then continued seriously, "When it comes to Sei. How should I put it? Well, he's unreadable. He's like a book I can't even begin to read because it was locked with series of bloody tough chains." "Are you frustrated?" "Frustrated, huh? I think not to that extent. But I admit my curiosity has been growing larger lately, I'm afraid it might burst out sometime soon." Haha. "I hope I can hold still, wait." Davi paused as she put her one hand in her hip, then faced the old man again as if she's a teenage spoiled brat who's about to demand something outrageous from her grandfather. "Gramps, I think it's time for you to talk. You promised to tell me something about Sei if I cook for you the whole week, remember?" Haha. "So in the end you won't even go easy on this old man, huh?" "I won't, but okay. This old man will now talk." While the two were sitting in the garden's gazebo, Davi looked so incredibly excited. "So, what do you want to know about him? Do you want to know why he covers his face?" the old man asked, and Davi's eyes twinkled immediately as though she just saw a golden box containing the world's most mysterious secret. However, in a blink of an eye the stars in her eyes suddenly vanished the moment she realized that the golden box in front of her was surely Pandora's box, something deadly forbidden. Seeing her expression, the old man laughed. "Haha. Are you that scared of him?" In response, Davi shook her head right away. "I admit I am, but it's not really about fear. I don't want to do anything that would anger him, and I will never purposely break my promise," she said, looking stern and resolute even though disappointment flashed across her beautiful eyes for a moment. "Are you saying that it's totally fine with you even if you will never know anything about him forever?" Upon hearing the old man's words, Davi shook her head like a rattle. "No, I'm never fine with it. But, I'm not rushing. One day, I believe he himself will tell me everything." "What if that day will never come?" Davi's eyes narrowed, then a silly evil smirk carved in her face as she speaks. "I will force it out his mouth." "Ha ha ha. That's the young miss for you. I wonder how will you do that?" This old man definitely wanted to witness it with his own two eyes. "Well, that's a secret, Gramps. I will definitely make him say it." Davi's eyes suddenly burned with determination and enormous fighting spirit, causing the old man to smile with all his heart's content. He was sure that no one in this world can be more suited as Sei's wife than this lady in front of him. That's the spirit, young miss. The old man looked like he was rooting for her, beaming with happiness and satisfaction. "And because of that I want to give you a reward. I can answer as many questions as I can as long as it's not about his identity, how about it?"